Today on the Topping Show, Matt Walsh tells Illam Omar to go back to where she came from when she says America is one of the worst countries on the planet. New York governor commits to spending $50 million on legal services for illegals. Representative Jasmine Crockett calls Trump supporters sick. Mercedes backpedals and will in fact keep making gas engines. Brembo expands and will make brakes now for bicycles. And Honda recalls a little over 250,000 SUVs. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapter, so you can mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part podcast, you have some good news. Mercedes woke up and realized people love and realized there is no replacement for displacement. I'm pretty sure that's a ancient philosophical saying. At least it is now. Now, this has come to us thanks to Motor1.com, specifically right over there, Adrian. And they say, quote, Mercedes makes, quote unquote, course correction to extend combustion engine life. Company's boss claims that keeping gas engines is the, quote, most rational approach, aka a way for them to, stay in business. And here you can see one of those AMG engines right there. And again, this is credited to Adrian over at Motor1.com. And he says, quote, it was only a few days ago that Audi announced its plans to continue production of gas-powered cars longer than initially intended. And its now long rival Mercedes is essentially saying the same thing. Head honcho, and again, it's German, so probably not going to pronounce this right, Ola Kalnias, maybe, admitted the Stuttgart-based manufacturer had made a course correction to retain internal combustion engines longer than initially planned. As a refresher, the company announced a few years ago they aim to go fully electric, where most market conditions allow, as early as 2030. Let's get a better look at Mercedes on the screen here. There. That is glorious. The Mercedes chairman and CEO told German auto magazine Automotor and Sport that, quote, electrified high-tech combustion engines will run longer than we originally expected. While he didn't provide the exact timeline, he's referring to the dual-gas electric strategy with an optimal solution given the slower-than-expected EV adoption. In the current situation, I think most rational approach is for an established manufacturer to do both and not neglect either technology. Automakers are retreating from the previously lofty EV goals, has fueled a misconception about a general decline in the electric car market. While it's true that the same companies are struggling, including Mercedes, which reported a 23% drop in 2024, the overall segment is growing. They say that reported EV sales have jumped more than 25% last year, according to the International Energy Agency, reaching 17 million vehicles. Now, that's true. Now, the issue is the adoption rate is decreasing. The overall sales for EVs across the globe are increasing, but the adoption rate greatly decreasing. They say, additionally, Bloomberg's NEF's annual electric vehicle outlook, published just yesterday, projects sales of plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles to surge by 25% this year compared to 2024, which hybrids is one of the fastest growing segments of automobile technologies. So obviously, I find them abhorrent because it's a glorified pseudo EV, it has a gas engine, but yeah, once that battery goes kaput, it is garbage, basically. Now, they say that, as you expect, China is estimated to account for the lion's share with almost 2/3 of hybrids and EV sales, according to the same study. As rivals, BMW and Audi, China remains Mercedes' largest market, despite a 7% decline in sales last year to 683,000 combustion and electric vehicles. Speaking of which, Clausen claims Chinese buyers, quote, don't use just their cars to get from point A to point B. It's also a, quote, second living room. Maybe that explains the heavy reliance on screens in recent models wearing the three-pointed star. Now, I also know that, quote, Germany's luxury trio will continue to offer a mix of combustion electric vehicles well into the 2030s, appealing to both camps. It remains unclear what will happen in other countries that follow the draconian, totalitarian, evil government. Oh, I'm sorry. The European Union, I can't tell the difference between the two. Regulations, which from the middle of the next decade will prohibit automakers from selling new vehicles that emit harmful pollutants. Some car companies are likely hoping for a delay in that ban, but the EU shows no signs of backing down because they're evil, useless dictators. Oh, I had that last part, obviously, but yeah, another reason I think most gearheads should be mostly libertarian or, small government fans, because yeah, the reason we're losing so many awesome cars is not due to lack of customer demand, but it's because governments are, I suspect wanting to control us more by, having little EVs that are easy to control in a myriad of ways. But some good news, at least for the short term, as you see, Mercedes will continue to make some large fun displacement vehicles. But let me know. It seems like pretty much every single automotive manufacturer has backpedaled from their previous EV commitments. But I mean, let me know. Do you think the adoption rate will actually increase next couple years? I'm personally pretty skeptical because, again, there's a lot of speculation that the $7,500 tax credit in the United States will be coming to an end. But let me know in the comments because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Brembo now to make bicycle brakes after decades of iconic car brakes. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Anthony Collins over at thedrive.com, which he says, quote, Brembo brakes are going on mountain bikes now. They've got even very cute little red calipers too, which that is, I do have to say, that is adorable. It literally just looks like they shrunk down an actual car Brembo brake, which, again, there's a lot of parallels, obviously. It's, a little bit smaller, but it's a disc brake. Now, they say that, quote, Brembo, the popular purveyor of the high-performance brakes for cars and motorcycles, is jumping into a new market in the arena of sport, downhill mountain biking. The Formula One and MotoGP brake supplier will now be making cute little bike brake calibers for specialized 2025 UCI MTB World Series bike. And yes, they are red, of course. I was going to say, let's get some more of those red calibers on screen. They say, there have been some one-off bicycles with Brembo brakes in the past, but this is the first proper OE application of something with pedal power. The specialized gravity team will be running Brembo's new brake system, not just the calibers, on its racing bike starting with the Val de Toll Sol coming up in June 2022. It makes sense, downhill bikes don't hit MotoGP speeds, but absolutely go fast enough to justify extreme braking performance, especially at the high level competition. I did a couple downhill mountain bike races in my youth as an amateur, never did a full day of downhill riding without damaging a significant component, usually bent wheels. Yeah, they look pretty, dude. They look pretty heavy duty right there. I mean, that's a great contrast with the red calibers, really. I mean, the whole bike, if you're not watching on Rumble or YouTube, the whole bike, most of the paint job is black. You have a little yellow spring, and then, yeah, those red calibers pop. Please note that, quote, new business relationships also surely have a hand in making this happen. Specialized has run All-in Suspension, which another brand that also does elite equipment for motorsports and rotor bikes and race bikes past couple years, and recently Brembo acquired Ollins just a few months ago. The Swedish company is still providing suspension for a specialized racing program and some other consumer bikes as well. As for the mechanical details on Brembo's new bike brakes, here's what's the brand share. Quote, the braking system, both front and rear, include an axial brake master cylinder with a floating diameter of 9mm and a triple lever adjustment, lever ratio, lever reach, and free stroke, allowing riders to customize the braking feel according to their preferences. The brake master cylinder is paired with a post-mount caliper featuring 4 isolated aluminum pistons with 8mm diameter to provide high braking power. The master cylinder and the caliper are connected via a braided steel hose to ensure consistent and precise lever travel. The system is completed by a fixed brake rotor specifically designed to match the caliper, within a large braking surface to optimize the heat dissipation during extreme use. Which I'm sure, including myself, a lot of that sounded like French. Well, more appropriately, perhaps Italian, because, where the company's headquartered. But yeah, precision, high quality, fancy to say the least. It's really cool to see the breakdown of all the components on the operating table right there. Well, when I say operating table like it's a doctor, obviously it's a performance bike shop. Now they say that continues saying, quote, asked my Brembo contact if the brake kit would be available as a standalone consumer option at some point. The answer wasn't a yes or no, as they shared via an email, quote, Brembo has decided to enter cycling sector with an initial supply in the racing applications world. This is a first setup into a realm of competitive bike racing with a new sector for Brembo and our racing business unit. We cannot speak to the future of potential in the bicycle industry as of now, but this is not an opportunistic partnership. It is strategic. Brembo and Specialized have just embarked on a journey that we hope will lead to future innovations in the near future, unquote. Which, yeah, of course, it's going to be a long-term partnership. It's obviously going to be profitable because I'm sure consumers, like every hobby, which is also a good and bad thing about hobbies, is awesome, I think. You can spend as little as you want on a hobby, and pretty much there's unlimited if you want to get custom and, pay for the best. And with bicycles, geez Louise, you can get a $100 mountain bike from Walmart, or you can spend, 20, 30, 50, more than you spend on a car if you want a competitive, professional bicycle. And again, aesthetically speaking, these look really cool too. And they're smart. Obviously, they have their good old Brembo logo perfectly painted onto that. All the equipment, not just the caliber, but also the handbrake itself. It looks really cool. And again, cyclists will pay for a premium product. It will be interesting to see what the actual price point of this is. Lord only knows, it's not going to be cheap. But yeah, in terms of expanding, Brembo is probably one of the best companies past couple of years where we're seeing a lot of acquisitions, but acquisitions that are strategic and make sense. I'm actually almost finishing reading America's Cornerstone, which is a book about the foundation and growing of Walgreens, and a lot of similar businesses, in that area, and even up to, I would argue, the maybe 90s, mid 2000s, they would, diversify the company by buying businesses that are in no way related to the head company or the head vision. And it seems like inevitably they always divest those companies decades later, sometimes at a loss. Brembo seems to be making a lot of strategic acquisitions into everything that's still related to main category of usually increasing the ride quality of a vehicle. Because again, Illam's a couple months ago, that's a suspension company for high-end motorcycles. This is braking, which again is the majority of what Brembo does, what they're known for. And it's going to be braking high-performance, cycles as well. Oh, only this time, cycles without engines. So not motorcycles, but actual street bikes or, racing cycles. In this case, mountain bikes. I think all these acquisitions and all these expansions are very strategic. And granted, not financial advice. I don't even think they're publicly traded. I know they're headquartered over in Italia, so they're fancy. But yeah, talk about a business that's making the right moves and really expanding upon what their vision is. And it's going to be really cool to see them watch them grow in the future. And then let me know, once this comes out, would you be willing to pay for a Brembo brake system for your mountain bike? I do suspect they'll get into the actual, like the Lance Armstrong bikes with the actual cycles, which because those already have, they already have these disc brakes on them, but they're not to that level. So I suspect that will probably be the next iteration, but because again, this article is about mountain biking. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think they'll expand to that? And then how much would you be willing to pay for one of these, or how much do you think they'll cost in general? Let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the Cultural Department podcast, you have Matt Walsh telling Illam Omar to go back home when she says USA is the worst. This is brought to us thanks to Matt Walsh's blog, or rather his hashtag Matt Walsh blog over on X, in which he was responding to Ed Wokeness when Representative Illam Omar says, "We are turning into one of the worst countries on the earth," which, reminder, she came from Somalia, which, the fact she's insulting America at all is viscerally, mentally vacuous and disgusting and stupid. Let's listen to her. She's, insufferable, but some people might argue better listen to her than me, but without too much further ado.
To be coming out of our country, I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world, to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets
because again, California, Los Angeles has allowed their cities to burn and be taken over. It's basically, I guess you could argue Somalia 2.0. Well, that's more like Minneapolis, but yeah, the courts are of course already settled. Trump has the authority to do this because, also the states aren't doing it. They're allowing it and incentivizing these things to happen. They keep happening in deep blue cities.
Without any regard for people's constitutional rights.
Coming from the one who wants to ban free speech as well as firearms. I should clarify, they love guns for the government, not for you and I.
Our president spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade.
There's a 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. That was a little while, last week, but yeah.
It is really shocking, and it should be a
She stutters worse than me, which is saying something.
Wake-up call for all Americans to say this is not the country we were born in. This is not the country we believe in. This is not the country our founding fathers imagined.
The leftists always, they'll reference the founding fathers, and most ironic, so ironically, it's like, you're the side that wants to ban guns, ban free speech. They don't want to destroy the Constitution.
And this is not the country that is supported by our Constitution, our ideals, our values. And we should all collectively be out in the streets rejecting what is taking place.
I think we can agree she does belong in the streets, as they say. And Matt Walsh simply responded, go back to Somalia, getting 2.9 million views, as well as 97,000 likes. Or Trump would probably say, Matt Walsh got the most views of all time, the greatest of all comments. She needs to be deported back to Somalia. She always complains, has nothing to contribute. Terrible, ugly woman. Only second to only that dog, Rosie O'Donnell. Well, Trump didn't say that precisely, but I would guess perhaps he said something like that. Now, going to the comment section, one of the first ones comes to us thanks to Brianna Moriallo saying, quote, yes, getting 57 likes. Our favorite contrarian, the gas stove, simply says, go back to Ireland, getting 36 likes. Was he ratioed, though? We go to the comment section. No. Someone says, by the name of I'm a horse thief, kind of admitting a crime there. But nevertheless, this alleged horse thief says, quote, he was born in the U.S. and is pro-U.S. Your brain appears to be faulty. Got no likes. I'll give him one like. We also have Crypto Max, and saying he doesn't say America is one of the worst countries on earth. Gave one like. Witherbow, interesting name. Mayor says, quote, why he's not complaining. So the gas stove was not ratioed this time. A rare instance. Mr. Pitbull, who I don't think that's a singer unless he has a disproportionate amount of time in his hands to tweet these days. We'll say the alleged Pitbull says, send Illan Omar back to Somalia. He has some pictures of her. It says, from jail cell to Congress. It says, well, these are question marks on it. It says, arrested 23 times. Daughter of Somalian terrorist, committed marriage and immigration fraud. ISIS and Al-Qaeda sympathizer, making a mockery of the U.S. government. Getting 245 likes. Quite a few to say the least. Which, yeah, she has a very interesting relationship with her brother. Sam White says, it should be illegal for people who aren't born in the U.S. to run for any political office. Doesn't matter if it's a mayor, Congress, Senate, City Council, no foreigners. Getting 557 likes. Which, now the downside of that philosophy, which I understand the argument, and I love debating that with my peers and friends. I mean, the issue is, there are a lot of Chinese people who will come here, have the kid here, and immediately fly back to China and be indoctrinated with their philosophies about communism. And technically, by the rules of right now, that person can come back and then run for president. So, I mean, just because you're born here doesn't mean you're automatically pro-America. Again, I really think that we should be more civics tests as well. Make sure you actually know the foundation of our country and make sure you're actually educated. But, and again, there's no guarantee just because you're born here. Now, that being said, I think it should be a variable component of, people who run for office. Now, it is for the presidency. Famously, people talk about that. But in terms of local, there's not too many discussions around that. And again, if you assimilate to the United States and, you espouse and you believe in the values of our founding fathers, I believe you should have the opportunity to run, especially on a local level. That's where a lot of good, impactful things can happen. So again, let me know in the comments. That's a very controversial statement from Sam White. He did get 567 likes. I wonder if he was ratioed. He got 70 responses. Going down more and more. He wasn't ratioed. All these responses are getting between 10 and 20 likes themselves. Now going back to the main comment section, Freedom Cat, which is A+ for marketing, is in fact a picture of a cat with a American flag behind him and wearing a USA bandana. That's cute as hell. He's only got 572 followers. We gotta fix that. I followed him. Now, the Freedom Cat says, Representative Tom Massey, can you please draft some legislation that makes people with dual citizenship ineligible to run for political office? In 269, let's make it 270 likes, because that is a good point. If you have dual citizenship, a lot of people may argue, where's your allegiance really? So that would be an interesting variable or interesting component in terms of U.S. office. That would be that would be interesting. I think it's certainly worth debating. Daddy Deplorable says, quote, why is it that when a non-native born American is critical of our government, we get to tell them to go back to Somalia? A contrarian statement getting 135 likes and 48 responses. First response, did not ratio him. Got about halfway there. A comment from But It's a Dry Heat says, quote, because no one from Somalia should ever be allowed in the U.S. to begin with. That's why I gained 63 likes. Jeez Louise, I'm starting worse than Illam Omar. And I do have a joke about that. When I first started the show, barely anyone tuned in. Well, maybe family. And I started worse than, I think I probably stumbled over my words worse than Joe Biden trying to climb upstairs and spoke faster than Ben Shapiro. But as I slowly but surely gain more subscribers, I become more articulate with my speaking. Some people might make fun of me and say, it's barely any improvement. Though I would argue, statistically speaking, technically an improvement nevertheless. So if you can click that button and type friends, I would greatly appreciate it. And I literally printed out a sign that says enunciate and slow down. It's behind the camera, believe it or not. Now, going back to the main comments, our Daddy Deplorable responded saying, quote, when Well, I am fully on board with the idea of having restrictive immigration, but telling a lawful naturalized U.S. citizen who serves in Congress to go back to Somalia is like talking to a wall on the way back from the bar. It's the dumbest. This is a real word. This dumbassery, I guess is a real word, doesn't add to the conversation, getting 27 likes. Going back to the main comment section. Wow, this one got 800 likes. This from Jared Edwards said, quote, I wonder what insecurities contributed to Matt Walsh blog racism, getting 803 likes. Well, again, Matt Walsh would not be saying this if she wasn't from Somalia and always complaining about the United States and calling the United States one of the worst countries on the planet. Again, you're from Somalia, which again, as Trump would say, Somalia, most people can't even point to it on a map. They certainly don't make iPhones. The cool V8 engines there. It's so lame. Not cool at all. No bald eagles. No good old AR-15s. No stick shift vehicles. They don't even have McDonald's, for Christ's sake. I'm like obviously kidding. Or am I? Did Trump really say that behind closed doors? Obviously didn't. But yeah, I think it's because she came from that country and always espouses, the values of this country and says how great it is. I think that's probably the main reason why Matt's saying that. He's not saying that randomly. It's because she specifically is attacking the United States and saying how terrible it is. But again, the U.S. is pretty gosh darn awesome. And I do love a quote from about 10 plus years ago from Ted Nugent. He once said, the whole world sucks, but the U.S. sucks the least. Because again, obviously there's problems with the U.S., but saying we're one of the worst on the planet, that's the dumbest thing anyone has ever said in a while. I mean, the bar is pretty low. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it's probably one of the most popular things Matt Walsh has said all month. And interesting, he got a couple contrarian statements, but overall, pretty much all in agreement with him. And let me know in the comments. I mean, again, she's winning election after election, partially because they import a lot of people from Somalia into Minnesota. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, because it's always be festive to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part podcast, you have New York governor committing to spend $50 million on illegals for legal services. Seems like leftists always like to spend our tax dollars on everything except actual taxpayers. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Benny Johnson on X, in which he said, quote, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announces that taxpayers will cover $50 million in legal services for criminal aliens in this state. No, this is not parody. Which, geez Louise, they will spend money on everything except taxpayers, I swear. And this is credited to Fox News, which is somehow still in business. I'm actually impressed. Somehow they're still around.
Nothing on New York Governor Kathy Hochul, because she's putting her money where her mouth is. She's going to spend millions of your taxpayer dollars for legal services for illegal immigrants.
Jeez.
We're also concerned about those that are walking out of this courthouse.
I'm sorry, I just had a visceral reaction. I thought that was a crypt keeper or crypt maker, crypt keeper. I don't know, it's so disgusting I barely speak. I mean, in comparison, I'm like a Pierce Brosnan. Jeez Louise.
Taken away from their families. They don't have the attention. They don't have the lawyers. And that's why the state of New York is providing $50 million to cover legal services for people who are finding themselves in this situation.
Finding themselves in that situation? Putting themselves in that situation. They broke into the country and came here. God, it's so asinine. But again, it's also New York. I'm not surprised. And maybe that's why this didn't go as far as I thought it would. Still think it's an important article to cover. It got 423,000 views as well as 14,000 likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Gunther Eagleman, who says, quote, is Kathy Hochul worse than Gavin Newsom? In 1.1 thousand likes. No, I would venture to say no. No one in the U.S. political system is worse than Gavin Newsom in terms of people in political office right now, I believe. I mean, again, California is one of the largest corrupt states on the planet, or in the U.S. Probably you could argue, there's a reason businesses and people are seemingly only moving away from California. I mean, they've lost over 180 businesses in the past 48 months, and yet I've yet to find one business that's moved to California. Yeah. Now, Barefoot Pregnant says, quote, it's not parody, it's Democrat priorities in full display. Yeah, it's true. Ginger Skull says, quote, I thought elected officials were supposed to represent and speak for us, not extort us, getting 134 likes. Yeah. The Skiff says, quote, this is what you should be protesting if you live in New York, getting 159 likes. Yeah. You have Teich Bets, which is hilariously a business for gambling. And they're making political comments. All right. He says, quote, and give taxpayer money to lawyers. There's a picture of a bunch of tattooed folks and says, to be clear, these are the people Democrats are trying to save from deportation. Getting 53 likes. Bulldog has a picture of Los Angeles on fire with the guy holding the Mexican flag. And the meme says, quote, remember, the Democrat commies must not let their price illegals, even criminals, be deported. Why? Because the next Democrat president will legalize all of them, make them Democrat voters, then turn the background shades blue. This is all about voting and creating a permanent blue socialist society. Getting 55 likes. Now, he says the Democrat, but guess what? Ronald Reagan was the first guy who started the domino effect of Democrats doing this. He did a huge amnesty, which destroyed California, I would argue. It was one of the last bills when California was still red, was voting, should we use tax dollars for illegals? In which, of course, they all said, oh yeah, after amnesty, they all said, oh yeah, we can use that money for them. And California has been blue ever since. Going down more and more. Ken simply says, shame on you, Kathy Hochul, getting 19 likes. Not any contrarian comments thus far. Chad Canton says New Yorkers are retarded living under this trick, getting 55 likes. Eric Dweller says she's disgusting, and there's a juxtaposition of two pictures. One of who's that guy from the Goonies? Started the G, I'm pretty sure, but it's the deformed guy from the Goonies, and they photoshopped her face to look slightly worse than usual, getting 35 likes. Florida 1 says, I feel really sorry for all the good conservative people in these blue states. Just a helpless feeling watching their governors destroy their state, getting 107 likes. You also have Citizen Caller says, how is this not a violation of her oath of office and treason against the United States? She's literally giving aid and comfort to the enemies of New York State and the country. 171 likes. Yeah. Giving away taxpayer resources to people who have not paid taxes. Yeah. Yep. But remember, New York as a brand. It'll be interesting to see if New York ever really changes their voting patterns or elects someone with intelligence or morality. Again, in terms of legal defenses, if you're a lawyer in New York, you want to volunteer. Sure, that's your right. You can volunteer whatever you want with your time. But yeah, to have taxpayer dollars paying for their defense, that's just ridiculous. But let me know in the comments, because it's always be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Jasmine Crockett calling Trump supporters sick and looking more ridiculous than usual, which is saying something. That's also credited to Benny Johnson on X. And he says, quote, Jasmine Crockett just called a bunch of Trump supporters sick, which he also has one of those dumb dresses on that looks more moronic than things they wear at the Met or the Gala, whatever the stupid fashion shows are called, that gives her like hooks for her shoulders. And of course, she sounds as ridiculous as she looks, per usual.
This idea that we don't care how many people get hurt, we don't care how we prostitute our service members, thinking that you have your own special little army that's for you. I mean, it is sick. It is really sick. And anybody that supports it is also sick. And so, we've got a mental health crisis.
People who support that the court has found Trump could use those resource allocations how he chooses.
In this country, because
after leftists allow the cities to burn, and I would argue even incentivize them, and they wouldn't stop the violence, so Trump had to step in.
Everyone, no matter how you affiliate yourself, should be against Trump, period. This is not partisan for me. Like, I would give anything to have, sad to say, George Bush. Give me...
Democrats always do this. Whoever's the last Republican in power, give it a couple years, and then they start to be all nice with them. Again, whoever replaces Trump, I guarantee you Democrats will say the exact same thing. They'll say he's the worst thing since Hitler. They'll demonize him. They'll make up lies about him. I guarantee I'll bet my bottom dollar, it would guarantee you, if J.D. Vance doesn't run for president in a couple years, they will say the same thing about him than they did with Trump. Again, when Bush was in office, they called him all these nasty things. And as soon as Bush got out of office, all of a sudden they started to be all nice to him and chummy.
Any regular
the Democrat playbook is really boring. It's a lot of copy paste.
Republican nowadays, and I would be happy, but right now we have someone who does not care, and he is being enabled by the fact that there are, people that follow him and they pump him up, as well as the people that are...
I swear she went to IKEA and just stole one of those rugs and turned it into a dress. I don't know why I find that so annoying. It looks so rudimentary.
Surrounding him. And so, my heart breaks for service members, people that signed up to protect democracy and freedom, not only here, but...
You said that our soldiers are defending our own country and trying to stop cities from burning to the ground. Never forget the George Floyd Summer Love riots where leftists allowed $2 billion in property damage and dozens of lives to be taken because of their lawlessness.
Abroad and were willing to risk their lives, and now literally the very thing that they signed up to fight against is now their commander-in-chief. It really breaks my heart. I don't know how far he has to go before we can come together and just say enough is enough. Like, this should not be partisanship.
As wise as she is beautiful, per the usual, Jasmine Crockett. And this got about 150,000 views and 2.5 thousand likes, with one of the first responses come to us thanks to Doge.ai, saying, quote, Crockett's rhetoric isn't just divisive, it's dangerous. She's co-sponsored H.R. 8081, a bill to strip the Secret Service protection from Trump after an assassination attempt. Now she labels millions of Americans as sick while pushing policies that fuel inflation, weaken border security, prioritize partisan vendettas over public safety. Real leadership unites, protects, and delivers results, not cheap insults and legislative sabotage. The party's obsession with demonizing half the country is the true crisis. Getting 353 likes. Going down more and more. Freedom Quest Network says, quote, speaking of being sick, sick like who? Sick like the mirror, Missy? How sick is this for you doing what you have done for years? This picture of Jasmine Crockett by a tombstone says, quote, Jasmine Crockett says she simply forgot to inform the Social Security that her grandmother died in 2012. She's been collecting $2,600 a month for 13 years. And 45 likes. You have Kathy Powell saying, quiet, Jasmine Crockett is making an ass of herself. Again. Yeah, what is that actor? Not Jamie Lee. I'm terrible with the Hollywood in the movies. But it was an SNL parody decades ago where you have an African-American man dressed up as a woman. What was his name? So much I know about pop culture and cinema. Well, at least modern cinema. Jamie Foxx? Yeah, that's what it is. Ultra MAGA has a picture of Trump pointing, and the May says, quote, your mental illness is showing, getting 19 likes. The Maple Truth says, quote, it's people like her that keep Trump supporters faithful. No one wants affiliation with her kind of crazy, getting 48 likes. Flowzilla has a screenshot of Jasmine Crockett, says, let me just ask you a question, gave 4 likes. James Kavakis says, I'm sick of your bullshit. Jasmine Fox getting 10 likes. A lot of amaze here. Texas Rose says, we do have a mental health crisis and Ghetto Crockett is shining example, getting 38 likes. Gig says, we are the sick ones, sure, Ghetto. There's a picture of her saluting. It says, Democrats putting the D in the difference when we do it. When they all, made fun of Illan or claimed Illan was doing the Nazi salute, and Democrats all did the same damn thing. Which, again, they're calling her Ghetto because she did change her vernacular, or rather her accent, in the recent years. She's not. She grew up in a very affluent neighborhood, very private school. And if you listen to her speaking years ago, she sounds extremely articulate. Extremely articulate, especially compared to me. Granted, it's a low bar. But again, a lot of people are saying she's ghetto. No, she's marketing. I would argue she's also not very authentic, but she's trying to appeal to her base and raise campaign funds. Just like Hillary Clinton did the same damn thing. Only you could argue she's not as embarrassing as Hillary Clinton, who claims she can relate to the African American community by having hot sauce packets in her purse. Though I should clarify, Hillary Clinton is a beautiful, intelligent woman. She has not had a disproportionate amount of people around her who coincidentally committed suicide, like 28 plus people. And she's definitely not a genocidal, homicidal, maniac, evil person. Definitely not. I should also note for the record, I don't own any rope in the rental house. And I very much want to live a long, fulfilling life. Just coincidentally, just want to throw that out there for the record. Going back to the main comment section, Steve McKee says, quote, Jasmine Crockett just called all normal Americans sick, fixed it for you, getting 38 likes. Kurt Bergstrom says, quote, 28% of liberals are on medication for mental illness. That's scary. It means 75% are running around untreated, getting 4 likes, which, yeah, is interesting to see statistics on mental illness and, liberal white women, the young ones in college. Yeah, those have the highest rates of unhappiness as well as mental illness. So Jasmine Crockett continued to pontificate, trying to raise campaign funds and increase her brand, which, again, the thing she's saying is going to get her more kudos on the Democrat side of the political aisle. I mean, people may think she's stupid. I pretty much have the antithesis philosophy of her, but again, she's doing it because this is going to help her political career. But I mean, because again, I think this will just get her more Democrat points, so more controversy the better. I think if anything, it's just going to keep making her more and more popular and propel her career in politics. But let me know in the comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Honda recalling over 250,000 of their SUVs. This is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com. Specifically, the writer over there, Anthony Allianz, in which they say, quote, "The pedal could shift out of position. Honda recalls 250,000 cars over faulty brakes. This affects the Honda Pilot, Acura MDX, and Acura TLX." Here you can see that little Honda SUV. Yeah, that's a pretty good SUV with a nice blue paint job, though pretty boring because, like all Honda SUVs, it only has 2 pedals, also known as automatic transmission, which I find abhorrent. Now, they say, quote, "Honda has issued a recall for 259,033 vehicles in the United States. The cars may have a brake pedal assembly with an improperly staked pivot pin, which could allow the pedal to shift laterally out of position. If this happens, it could compromise the driver's braking ability and cause a crash. This recall affects the 2023 to 2025 Honda Pilot, 2023 to 2025 Acura MDX, and the 2021 to 2025 Acura TLX. The Pilot makes up most of the recalled cars at 181,243 vehicles affected. Honda estimates that 1% of the affected models have the defect." They also note that Honda received their first report of the vehicle experiencing brake pedal movement in April of 2024. It received a second report in December 2024 and began investigating the parts inventory from the supplier in February 2025, before determining earlier this month to issue a voluntary recall, which, again, that is a downside of automobiles these days, especially. There's between 10 and 30,000 components in a vehicle. So that's a lot of variables and a lot of subcontractors that they work with, a lot of suppliers to make the vehicle come together. Now, they note that Honda discovered that the supplier relocated production from the United States to Mexico. It increased staffing and production to offset any supply shortages. I don't know, is it just me, or every time you hear Mexico, do you hear? Probably just me. They say, however, the staff failed to perform the staking process due to insufficient training, resulting in the brake pedals with unstaked pins. In a safety recall report, Honda stated that it's not aware of any reported injuries or deaths related to the issue. However, it is aware of 3 related warranty claims. The company will begin notifying affected customers by the end of July, or just tune into the Topping Show, where inevitably we cover these days or sometimes months before the actual recall tells owners. They say that they will instruct owners to take their vehicles to a dealer for an inspection. Service technicians will then replace the assembly, if necessary, free of charge. Well, to the consumer. Dealers are never happy because they get what they call warranty work or warranty pay. It's greatly discounted from how much they normally pay and charge customers. And it's not good for Honda shareholders or, Honda employees, because, again, that's less profit for the company as the parent, the actual manufacturer pays for this. But, Honda's known for one thing, and it is reliability. That's why I hate that they're making hybrids and EVs, which are inevitably not reliable long term. But I still love my Honda Civic Si with the stick shift. Also, number one stick shift manufacturer on the planet, fun fact of the day. Again, Honda is not as fast as other cars, not as luxurious as other vehicles. It's known for reliability. And the fact that this is, again, now thankfully, give them some credit, they're ahead of the situation. No one has been negatively affected by this thus far. That's great. But again, to have a recall that's related to safety as well, when, again, you're known for reliability, and this is, you think of stuff that breaks in a car, the radio button volume, that breaks, it's fine. But yeah, something related specifically to safety, gotta say that, especially Honda, that makes you the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.